Hey everybody, today we're going to be talking about beginner instruments in the Yamaha line, specifically the Woodwind models. Stick around and find out more. Hi everybody, my name is Andrew King and we're at Alamo Music. Please visit us at alamomusic.com to see all the items I'm going to be talking about today. And don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe and hit that bell to see when we get more content in for you to enjoy. Today we're going to be talking about the Yamaha student line Woodwind models. Basically, these are going to be the instruments that any of your students or you want to start on going into your new band program or maybe a community ensemble or just to get back into it if you played it a long time ago. There is the saxophone, the clarinet, and the flute are mainly what I'm going to be talking about today. I could count the oboe and the bassoon as well, but those are going to be for another video because those are far less common. So to start out with, I'm going to start with the clarinet on the Yamaha line. There are tons of different models out there that you can start out with, and Yamaha makes it very clear with which ones to get. When you start out on any of them, they usually start out with a, say, 200, a 400, then 6, and it just goes up from there depending on what level you want to go to. So with the clarinet, usually with these instruments, you would want to start on the 200. The 200 on the clarinet is going to be an instrument made of more of a plastic material with nickel-plated keys. It plays great. It's a really good instrument, especially to begin on. But what tends to happen is a lot of the schools these days are going to ask you to start on the 400 series. So this would be like the 400, the 450N, which stands for nickel. These instruments are actually going to be made with a grenadilla wood. The reason for this is it has a much more centered tone, it adds a much more beautiful color to the instrument, and it just plays a lot better. I'm going to really recommend following whatever the band director puts on the list as far as like mouthpieces and whatnot, but the reason to start out with this instrument is that when a bunch of kids and stuff like that start out on it in a band program, you kind of want them all to sound the same, and you want that high quality. So when you go and pick out your clarinet, you would go with the Yamaha 400 because it has that brilliant color to it and it plays really well and it goes really far. Now, as far as other options to go with, there is the 450 series, which has the N model and then also has a 450S model. The S, it stands for silver, so you get that grenadilla wood, of course, but you also get the S, which makes so the keys and stuff go and have more of a silver plating. I see this in case and say I've had instances where I've had customers where the kid will come in, try it out, and it turns out they have what's called what's basically a nickel allergy. So if there's some kind of consequence that you're not thinking about or maybe that you want to look into, I highly recommend looking at the silver model. There's not much as a difference in terms of tone quality with these. The keys are going to be a little heavier in my opinion, but other than that, there's not much of a difference. So the next portion of instruments that I'm going to really recommend is going to be in the flute model. It's going to be the Yamaha 200 series as well. These tend to be labeled under 262 and 282. The biggest difference between the two is going to be the G key. So on the 262, you have what's called the offset G. When you look at a flute, usually they're all going to be in line with each other, especially the more professional ones. But because these instruments are more aimed toward younger kids, they make it so that with the key, they move it down a little bit so when the kid puts their fingers on it, they don't have to reach as far with their tiny hands to reach and cover the hole that's on the key. I'll talk about that in a second. On the 282, on the other hand, the entire thing is in what's called inline G. So all the keys are in a row. This is what would be more traditional in the professional series and the intermediate series. Now, talking about that as well, all these flutes that Yamaha makes these days are all going to be what's called open-hold flutes. The reason for this is that there's certain techniques and everything that you can do that are more required that back then when they made hold flutes, you can't really do anymore. You couldn't do back then. So with the hole in the flute and everything, you get a much more open tone and much more control over your placement of notes. Problem is that it's really hard. It takes a lot of dedication and practice to continually make sure that your fingers are almost perfect when covering the flute holes. They do come with flute covers, or hole covers. So basically it's little plugs that come up and plug the holes so you don't have to worry about it. But as you practice, I recommend just taking one off at a time and everything from the front, from the D key up until you reach it, and it makes it just easier to learn how to do it. The next one we're going to look at is the Yamaha alto saxophone. The 200 and the 280 series. These instruments are going to be basically the standard vanilla saxophones. There is the Yamaha 23, the 26, there's a 280, there's a ton of different ones that have come out over the years. All of them, you'll find them online and everything like that. I really can't say that all of them play that much different from each other. They are very standardized as far as make, all made of the same materials and everything. The only real big differences you're going to find is a lot of the time as they age and everything, as far as you go back, some might lose the high F sharp key, which is not super important in the beginning. Usually don't even touch that key until like a year in. But as you go on and stuff, the more modern instruments, they start to include the high F sharp key, but these are perfect for beginners. Strong keys, very strong springs. All of the instruments I'm talking about are very high level student model instruments. So one of the biggest reasons to start with Yamaha, in my opinion, is the consistency in your purchase. A lot of these instruments are machine made, and there are going to be some mistakes. Some instruments are not going to play as well as others within the same brand, and because of that, Yamaha has made their name and reputation based on the fact that if you buy a Yamaha instrument, the consistency of them is phenomenal. If you go out and buy that Yamaha Clarinet, Flute, Saxophone, even the brass models too, they're all going to be extremely similar, and this is very sought after by band directors, especially because their students are going to be coming in with wildly different approaches to trying to play the instrument. So when you go out and purchase and everything, the whole reason that Yamaha tends to be more expensive in the first place is for that consistency. Now, there's tons of different ways to purchase these instruments. A lot of places tend to have a rental program, which is great for kids to see if you want to get into it. Financing is always available as well. I always recommend looking into the purchase price and trying to finance it on your own side, because you can go for that cash price and end up having a much lower price. But as far as anything else goes, the instrument is just a good horn, a great student model for any student to start out with, and I recommend it for anybody. One of the other reasons to go for the Yamaha brand, in my opinion, is for the repair costs. One of the hardest things about getting these instruments, and especially when you're entrusting these to students, is that you're entrusting them with a some odd $1,000, $2,000 instrument, and that's a huge deal. But with these instruments, at least you can know that these instruments will always be available to be fixed. Some of these instruments, when you go into, say, the online models where you can get more inexpensive ones brand new, they tend to not release their parts for repair techs to use to fix them, and they're made of cheaper materials. So when you go with Yamaha, or any of the other top brands in that matter, you tend to have a way better time getting parts for them. The repair techs are going to have them readily available. They're way easier to fix. The parts are much more malleable and bendable. Just works way better for that. So I highly recommend, as far as longevity goes, all of these instruments are going to be great for any kind of middle schooler and even high schooler going into college, especially if they're not taking it seriously. If you're going to be like a music major or something like that, that's another story. But if you just wanted to keep it as a hobby, these are instruments that can easily last, as long as they're taken care of, 10 to 20 years, easy. Any other instruments, especially the more inexpensive ones, they tend to die off and stuff, and you would have to just buy a new one. You kind of get into this whole malicious cycle. Well, thank you so much for listening. My name's Andrew again. Please visit us at Alamo Music. We have all of these instruments readily available, and call in for pricing as well, see if we can help you out with a deal. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and let me know what you think of these. I've been a huge fan. I started on a Yamaha myself. I've been playing on Yamaha till now. I play on a Yamaha 61. Tell me what you play on. Thank you so much for watching, and have a wonderful day.